the behavior that was across the board, across all of their customers and any peers that were impacted. So, the announcements were one thing, but even once the announcements had stabilized, it wasn't good because they were dropping traffic they were announcing. And so we'll talk a little bit about kind of some peering changes that were made, and what was so kind of really, really unusual about this incident is that there was really nothing that their customers could do to route around the issue because of the nature of this outage and the fact that level 3 was effectively advertising zombie routes. They were like,
they were basically, I feel like, unable to honor any updates that were coming in from their peers or from enterprises, that were essentially saying or trying to withdraw routes. But level 3's control plane CenturyLink probably was so jammed because of what was going on that they were really unable to do anything there. So they continued to kind of advertise the older routes, which didn't really serve the purpose of trying to bypass or go around.
Right. Anytime you have an outage like this, you're thinking, okay, I can maybe change my advertisements and that will fix it. But to your point, their control plane was broken, and so there was a lot of folks who were revoking advertisements to level 3, and level 3 was, call it what you will, hijacking whatever. They were continuing to advertise those routes independently, which we'll see here.
Angelique, just to call attention to the timeline here, right? Like the first type triggers that we saw was in around 10 o'clock, in line with the RCA and what everybody has seen.
The start of the incident,
Start of the incident. And the second, peak that we see here is around 10:45, right? And to your point, there are a couple of things that happening here right now.
So some of the path changes here are influenced by level 3, just kind of doing their own thing on their own, and some of them are influenced by ourselves in this case. So here, we're basically have at this point in time have revoked announcement of our prefixes to level 3, and at the same time have established a peering relationship and have started advertising through Cogent as the secondary provider here.
Right. And even before the outage, what this looked like is having two upstreams. One is Zayo and the other one is level 3. And then because of level 3 issues, we kind of withdraw from level 3 and then start peering with Cogent.
And two important things were done at this time, which I think it is important to point out, and is one of the takeaways here, which is there were certain things in this outage that were completely uncontrollable from the standpoint of their customers and enterprises. The fact that their routes were still being hijacked and they weren't valid is one thing, but when you consider asymmetric routing, and if you have even if you can't control the advertisement of your prefixes, you can control who you're sending traffic to. And if you know one of those providers is severely incapacitated, you don't want to be sending them traffic because it's just going to get dropped. So in this particular instance, with this update, one, the prefixes were revoked to level 3, announcing our own prefix, but also we're not accepting inbound traffic from CenturyLink. And that's really important because then that prevented us from, we're basically not sending them any more traffic. And so, if something comes through from, say, Zayo or from Cogent, it will come out, it will go out that way as well.
Right. And the way it manifested, and sometimes what you see from a service point of view is it might seem like, say, for instance, another provider is dropping because you're kind of seeing the path only one way. But traffic actually being dropped at CenturyLink in the reverse route. So I think that was kind of
Yeah,
really
just
key.
because it's coming in under Zayo and, for example, and, you know, and you're expecting them to work, doesn't mean that it's necessarily going out through the same provider. And so you have to understand that you can, you know, in this instance, you could have controlled the outbound traffic. That's always in your control. Inbound, you can influence, but you can't, you know, 100% control. But outbound, you have complete control over that. And so that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think the other interesting thing here, as we were like walking through this earlier today, is to kind of get that, another validation that level 3 was not ceasing to send, updates, right? Because here we're seeing 23 routes, say for instance, this example, like we are established with Cogent, and this is a completely new peering relationship that we triggered because of level 3's outage. However, those same 23 routes, we see them through level 3's network as well, which, if the withdrawals had gone as expected, we shouldn't have seen this. We should have seen, right, the
should have seen the same number of kind of paths or same number of routes before and after, but that's not the case here. So, during these periods in which they were doing their re-announcements, they were just basically kind of the number of routes would go up,
right,
and it would kind of return to lower levels throughout this incident. So,
yeah. So this was one type of looping situation. We saw level 3 do this, route withdrawals, establishment at 10 o'clock, then around 10:45 you see this. At 10:45 we also see a new connection established through Cogent from our end. And as we just walk through this timeline a little bit, we kind of see, some semblance of stability here, right? We see, again, level 3 back to peering with with the other ISPs. So almost feels like there's a pattern here in terms of there is some instability, and then in the next interval, level 3 seems like it's established peering. Then again, the other interval, it withdraws its BGP routes, and then
it withdraw, like it's going through these cycles where it's just like it's announcing the routes, and then it will go where it will revoke the announcements and then reestablish them, and it's going in these cycles. Now, this is just from a control plane standpoint or a routing standpoint. Effectively through the duration of the outage, they were just dropping traffic. So it was independent of any of kind of the announcements and even the route flapping. Right. So it wasn't like the route flapping was causing the traffic loss even when they were not route flapping. They were still dropping traffic.
Right. One of the interesting updates as the outage was, happening was this Twitter input that we saw from Telia, one of, level 3's peers,